Hello everybody, Thy Lord Root here, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Play Kerbal Space Program. So it's the Big 10-0, and today we're going to go to the moon, but not quite in the way that you might expect. Or you probably would expect it if you watched the last episode. For those of you who haven't been watching the prior episode, shame on you. But yeah, we've got this magnificent little craft here. This is our lander, and we use, as you'll notice, a plane cockpit because it incidentally gives us the best visibility. Now the idea here is that we're going to take off, land, plant a flag, and head back to Kerbin. And really, all of these, with the exception of the Lunar excursion, are going to be done in cockpit view. So take a good look at our stack. You won't be seeing it anymore, hopefully. So here we are, and we're just going to go ahead and get ready to move on. So this is a more or less standard maneuver for getting out of the atmosphere. We got our gravity turn at 9K, and then we are going to search the rise at 100K apoapsis or so. It's not going to be quite 100K, it's going to be more like 106, which means that we're going to burn at, probably at, until 41K, and then we're going to cut our engines. And then we're going to, on our, second pass around, Kerbin, we are going to, before we hit our apoapsis again, rather, on our first orbit, we're going to fire towards the moon. And so, if I don't, if I just kind of stop talking, that's because I'm trying not to screw up my gauge readings. It's very easy to, for this mission to be, for you to screw it up on. There's a lot that can go wrong. And I ended up, doing this, quite, quite easily. I mean, this took some 12 hours or so for me to rehearse. Because I thought I got it, and then I couldn't reproduce what I was doing. Even after, a couple of times of doing it successfully in rehearsal. Incidentally, that's why, I wasn't scaling my engine power or anything on liftoff, because I want there to be as few variables as possible. But you can see the moon outside the window there. And that's a pretty good sign. And so what we're going to do is we're going to get in position for this burn. And by the way we'll know when we hit apoapsis is that we will actually, see that accelerometer below the atmosphere gauge. We'll see that, move towards zero. And the reason this works is, I don't know if it's an accelerometer, it's actually, I guess, more of a velocity meter. Or a relative velocity meter or something, because there's really only one source of acceleration at this point, which happens to be, Kerbin's gravity. So I'm not entirely sure what that is, but at any rate, like, if you think about it, like, you've got this position function, which is like, your gravity squared plus your initial velocity, plus your initial position. Well, if you take the first derivative of that, then you get your velocity function. And what you'll find is, with the first derivative being the instantaneous, with it being the instantaneous, velocity at that point, that the parabola's maximum has an instantaneous velocity of 0. And, I mean, the derivative is actually very simple to calculate, right? Like, if you've learned the power rule, for those of you taking calculus, then what you do is you take the degree of the operand, and you lower that degree and then multiply it by the original degree. Or of the term, rather. So, that gives us 2x plus c. C being our initial velocity. And that, that means that when we hit 0, that, or when we hit our apex, we have 0 velocity, or vertically. And I mean, that's the difference between, like, your orbital velocity and your, your vertical velocities. Your orbital velocity is actually a vector that, is, that also gives you a horizontal component as well. And I mean, the idea that, our velocities roughly follow, Newtonian mechanics. That's actually the reason why calculus, at least from Newton's perspective, was invented. Like, he invented calculus largely to deal with his physics work, and he actually wasn't the only one to use calculus. There was a guy by the name of Leibniz that was his contemporary that was doing it at the same time, figuring this all out at the same time, and I don't quite remember what Leibniz actually did, but, we actually owe Leibniz, 2 forms of notation. The first being the dx over dy notation for differentials. And that is, that was just his preferred notation. I believe Newton used the apostrophe instead. He preferred to use, like, the prime symbol. But Leibniz also gave us, something completely different. He gave us, he ended up giving us, in addition to that, he gave us the symbol for integration, which, for those of you who have not studied calculus, that's the weird S-looking thing. And in fact, that's long S. We don't really use it anymore in English, but it was in use even as far back as, like, the late 1800s. I mean, if you read the original Constitution, it looks like it says in congress, but that's actually long S, and German actually has a ligature that I don't think they use long S exclusively anymore either. I mean, there's some street signs I've seen that, I've never been to Germany, but, there are street signs that have the long S in them, but, as a rule, they don't seem to use it all that much. And, the deal is with that is that, It was just a different kind of notation. You'll find it everywhere in Elizabethan English and even in older forms of English as well. Anyway, the Germans have a ligature called SZ that's a combination between long S and short S, and it's a double S, basically. So, that story. Um, I guess it's not really much of a story. But anyway, the thing I was going to say is that, and we're used to Newtonian mechanics. It's in KSP, I don't believe there is any relativity whatsoever. I could be wrong about that, but there just doesn't happen to. There are very few instances in KSP where relativity really shows up, but there are actually places within our own solar system where it does. Like, for instance, the precession of Mercury wasn't explained until special relativity came into play. And in fact, I do want to be clear that's what I'm talking about, because there is relativity in Newton, in the sense that, in Newton, vectors add, right? Well, what have we got going on here? I have a feeling we aren't entirely, captured in the moon's orbit. I guess we'll see here in a moment. We may have gone a little bit too far. Oh, there we go. Awesome, we actually do have, something going on with this. So, let's see which direction we're gonna go. We're going to go towards the dark side, it looks like. But at least we are, at least we're, in the sphere of influence of the moon. That's fairly surprising, because like I said, the it doesn't really cascade all that well. I'm gonna bring out my landing gear just in case, and we can watch it deploy. It's pretty cool. Well, I'll put it back up. But yeah, at this point, we'll have just a little bit too much in the way of energy when we reach the moon. Or we'll crash into it. I haven't really decided yet. We do want to search the rise. We don't even really have to search the rise, to tell you the truth, because we're wanting, to be on the dark or on the light side, just because it is easier. And hopefully we haven't missed our opportunity on that. If we have, then we're going to have to do some very expensive you know, manipulation here. And I prefer to burn at 10 here. You can burn at whatever you want when you're flying the spacecraft. But then again, you're not flying the spacecraft, I am. And so, we do want to bring in our orbit, I'm going to bring it down to maybe 200 or 300 maybe. And we're not going to have very much fuel to do this, if you look at our fuel reserves, it's not going to... Why isn't it showing that stage? It's kind of weird. Anyway, we'll go ahead and burn, I'm going to do this. I'm going to drop off this fuel tank here. And just kind of push it out of the way, because we're going to have to start thinking backwards now because of the orientation of our dill. Now we may actually, we may be there we go. Let's see where we end up. I think once we get around here, then it will be time to start nulling out our velocity. Because I do believe that we have, I do believe we have a ballistic trajectory now. Though I could be wrong. But yeah, we're on the light side of the moon now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kill my orbital velocity as much as I can. I'm going to leave a little bit in the way of... And by kill orbital velocity, I mean, actually kill it, not, burn what is essentially prograde. This is what's confusing about this lander. This lander is not the world's most intuitive lander. It's because the engines are forward, right? Let's see what our surface velocity is. I'm just going to push in that surface velocity some. We don't want to kill all of our velocity. We just want to... there we go. We're a little bit off. I mean, the important thing is that we're now within the moon's gravity well. Now, incidentally, this craft does become useful if you overshoot, because, if you're unlucky enough to do that, then, let me get down to velocity here. If you're unlucky enough to overshoot, then you will Oh, you will incidentally, you know, put yourself in a very bizarre position. To where, you know, the moon will be just within your grasp, and I've figured out the way to do that is to burn your prograde towards the moon. That actually makes a little bit of sense. Probably here, I'm gonna start burning off just a little bit of my delta V. We are facing straight down. In fact, we could probably even stand to burn off more, but we do have to be careful where we start this. I mean, it's the trouble is, you know, coming in from a very high orbit, you can suicide burn, but that is not as easy to do. Yeah, we're getting down to the point now to where, for too long, we do want to kill our horizontal velocity, so... And it looks like we actually picked a fairly good place to land. We picked the basin of a crater. So I'll call that, you know, for now, fast enough. I do want to pick up a little bit of velocity, because as we come down, I can kill off that velocity a little bit more easily. Anyway, you know, the point I was going to say is that, you know, with respect to, relativity, that actually, the entire deal with, like, Newton has relativity because vectors add, you know. It's not Einstein's relativity, of course. Einstein's relativity is, a little bit different. But vectors in that sense don't have a preferred frame of reference. They're in the frame of reference of the observer. But the whole deal that, you know, started work on relativity in the first place is the fact that, or one of the things was the fact that, you know, in the late 1800s, scientists were trying to figure out, you know, what the deal was with light. Because it is, you know, it's good to know. Whoa, we're coming in way too fast. Yeah, that's... So yeah, the deal is, you know, scientists were trying to figure out, you know, what the basic properties of light were, and at one point it was discovered through the famous slit experiment that light behaves like a wave. Now, I mean, we have quantum now, and we know that light is, you know, not... It behaves both like a wave and a particle. There we go. Are we gonna tip over? Hey, imagine that. This thing rights itself. I was looking at the wrong velocity. No wonder I was coming in so fast. Let me get out and plant this flag real quick. So yeah, let's see, first of all, we want to figure out where is Earth. Earth may be kind of hard to find. No matter, we'll lower our, we'll lower our deal here, our ladder. And, we'll EVA. And, well, I said we'll EVA. Don't chicken out on me now, Jeb. We'll just go ahead and we'll place our ladder here. And we just may be at the point to where, you know, Jeb may have to wait. But we'll put out our flag, nonetheless. And let's name this I Am Hardcore. Flown by the seat of my pants. There we go. So yeah, Jeb is going to, he's going to wait just for, you know, the Earth to come up. Although, you know what, that may not be entirely necessary. Yeah, let's... Oh, one thing we do need to do is we need to retract that ladder before we go in, because that's going to get in the way. This looks really cool inside the cockpit, by the way. You'd be surprised at, like, how detailed this animation actually is. Let's get up to 270. Because this is actually east. Orbital velocity around the moon is 500–600K, I want to say. Let's see if we can... Are we losing altitude? Oh shit, yes we are. Okay. Let's just bring ourselves up a little bit higher. I don't think we're up as much as we need to be. We'll just jettison this stage, because now, we have bigger fish to fry. Now we have to hopefully get to the point to where we can see Kerbin again. It's hard to tell. It looks like our, you know, our orbit is moving. Oh, there it is. So yeah, let's burn towards Kerbin. And this is going to be a little bit counterintuitive because, although our orbital velocity is more than high enough to get intercept, I'm gonna go up to 800. measure. And remember, we should. There we go. There is our change. And we have 400 meters a second per delta V to burn down. So I'm gonna suicide burn. And that is too much suicide. And we should be coming at the planet like, we should be coming at the planet like a bat out of hell. The ship is not throttled up. Um, we do want to be careful here, but we're going to be coming in at about, 3 kilometers per second. Which means that, when we get into the atmosphere, we're gonna, oddly enough, this is going to create more than enough drag for us. And I believe we're actually in the atmosphere now. So, yeah, we will, I'm gonna jettison that fuel tank. This actually looks really cool inside the cockpit, in my opinion. But, yeah, I guess we're just going to land for good measure. You'll notice SAS is draining the battery like nobody else's business, but we do have a good view of the night sky here, so, I think that was our other stage. I guess we'll be landing in the water, maybe. And it looks like our parachutes have deployed. And probably none too soon. About, we're, without those parachutes, we're sitting ducks, or rather, we're roasted ducks. Because we came in at, we came in at like maybe 3 kilometers per second, a little above it. I mean, it could have been worse. We could have been coming in at, Kerbal, Kerbal being the sun, Kerbal orbit velocity, and the atmosphere just wouldn't have been enough it wouldn't have provided enough drag to slow us down. We would have had too much energy, and if, I guess if this were a red faction or whatever, then we would have destroyed the space center, or probably put a, actually, I guess red faction probably doesn't, provide terrain deformation. But, we would have left a smoking crater in the ground. Since we can't really do anything, well, I guess I'm going to. We're almost there. I mean, this is the part, to where it's all waiting, but we're gonna hit zero pretty soon. Splash down in the water, and that's us. And how far off did we, land anyway from KSP? That's actually not too terribly far. I don't know if y'all can see that, but KSP is on that middle continent. So anyway, this has been Thy Lord Root, and I will see y'all next time.